everybody for joining today's Wednesday webinar. Today we're going to be focusing on B1UP macros. So the agenda today is we're going to review some various B1UP macro commands. There's a ton of great macro commands from B1UP, and we won't have time to go through all of them, but I'm going to show you the most popular ones. And I'm also going to show you the really neat help feature. It really lists all the macros and explains in detail what each macro can do. We're also going to review the B1UP macro tools. So, for example, the quick insert feature, the macro wizard feature. We're going to see how that works and how it helps you create macros. We're also going to have some fun today. So we're going to automate a business process using B1UP macros, and we're really going to get creative. Okay, and then we'll end today's webinar with a little Q&A at the very end. So what's B1UP? Think of B1UP as an extension of SAP Business One. So for those of you that attended our B1UP webinar about two months ago, you're probably already familiar with B1UP. But basically, it's a usability package from B1UP, one of our solution software providers, and it lets you tailor SAP to your business needs. Now, I'm not going to go too deep on what B1UP is because there's so much to talk about, but if you want, here is a link to our last webinar. You can watch a really neat video on there, and what I'll do is I'll also copy and paste this link into our chat window as well. Okay. So what exactly is a macro? It's short for macro instruction. So basically, it's a group of programming instructions that have been compressed into a simpler form and appear as a single instruction, such as a single keyword or keystroke. So quite simply, macros are just a set of instructions. So for example, what can you do with macros? You can automate business processes. For example, you can open or close windows automatically. You can transfer data from one field to another, or even from one screen to another. You can set default data on a screen. You can show a status bar message or create a pop-up message, etc. Again, there's way too many to list, but again, I'm going to show you some of the most popular macros today. So why use B1UP macros? Well, number one, you can automate business processes and you can create workflows on the fly. You can save time by automating your work, and you can reduce human error, always making sure that the right data is entered. And the great thing about this is you can do it all yourself. You don't need to be a developer. So without further ado, let's start the B1UP macro demo. Okay. Okay, so just very quickly, I mentioned our project line website. So here is our project line website, and you can see a nice little video here from 2 months ago on B1UP. It really talks about B1UP at a very high level. It talks about all the different wonderful features within B1UP. So please take a look at our website. There's lots of great videos and useful tools on here as well. Okay. So let's go into SAP Business One. And the first thing you're going to see right now, I've got my item master screen open here. And we're really just going to create a very simple B1UP macro. So I'm going to right-click my screen here, and let's create a button on our screen. Let's right-click, add function buttons to this window. Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Add function button to this window. Okay, and I'm just going to give it a quick name. I'm going to call it a purchase order button. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select a universal function, and we're going to create a universal function on the fly. Okay. Okay, so what you're seeing here in B1UP is the universal function, and we're going to select macro, and we're going to give it a name. And what I like to do is I just like to copy and paste this description over here as well. Okay. So what you see in this big window here, this is where we're going to start listing all of our different macro commands. And all of those different macro commands are right here. In the bottom drop-down menu, you're going to see a whole list of different macros that you can choose from. And what we're going to do today is play with the most popular ones. One thing I should also point out is there's a great help feature. And you can see here the help feature tells you, it lists basically all the different macros and it nicely explains what each macro can do, right? So for example, you can create system pop-up messages, etc. It gives you some examples to play with as well. Okay, what you're also going to see here to the right is we have a couple of features. We've got the wizard feature and we've got the quick insert feature. So the first thing we want to do is create a simple macro. When we click on our button, it's going to open up the PO screen. So what we're going to do is, for example, if we use the wizard, okay, we're going to activate our PO screen. So what we'll do is we're going to give it a description. And we'll insert that. So what you see here, activate is the actual macro command. And then we have a couple of brackets here. And within these brackets, we have to enter our argument. And our argument is basically the PO menu ID. How do we find out what that PO menu ID or that purchase order menu ID is? It's very simple. We go up to Modules, Purchasing, Purchase Order, and if you look at the very bottom left corner of our screen, it says Menu ID 2305. So we're going to type in 2305, and we're going to click on Add. Okay, so just like that, we've got our macro. So I'm going to close our item master data screen here. I'm going to reopen it. And now we should see a button on our top right corner. And we're just going to scroll to an item. I've got an item here called Atom Bomb, the Atom Bomb of atom bombs. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on this button. And what's going to happen is it opens up our purchase order screen. Just like that, we've created a nice little macro. But you know what? It's just not good enough. We want to also put in some other information into this purchase order screen. For example, from the item master screen, we want to draw in the item number onto the row. We want to put in the default vendor. So for example, on the purchase data tab of the item master, we've got our default vendor. And we want to basically put in as much information as possible so that our purchaser doesn't have to do any work. And we want to eliminate any human error too. We want to make his or her life as easy as possible. So let's go ahead and start layering. Sorry, when I say layering, I'm referring to adding more lines to, more macro lines to our universal function. So let's close out our PO or minimize it. Let's go back to our item master. We're going to right click here. And we're going to say edit function button. And we're just going to drill into our universal function here. Okay, so we're going to start adding more lines to this macro. So what we want to do, like I said, is transfer the default vendor. So we're going to go to our drop-down list here, and we're going to select another macro command called transfer. And this time, instead of using the wizard, I'm going to use the quick insert feature, right? Sorry, I'm going to go here, and quick insert puts it in there. And what you can see here is I've got a source field and a target field. Basically, the source field is going to be the preferred vendor, and the target field is going to be on my PO, it's going to be the vendor code field at the very top here. So I'm going to transfer my vendor code from the item master to the PO screen. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, one thing I should actually point out is a really cool feature. If I right-click the field and I go copy system information, I can get the dynamic syntax here. This is basically the information about the field on that current stream. So this preferred vendor field is this dynamic syntax here, $ bracket, $16.0.0. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to insert that here over source. Just going to paste it right there. And the target field is going to be on my PO field, right? So let's go right-click here, copy system information. So it's going to go into this field. And I'm going to place that right here. Okay. And what we can also do is we can type in a little explanation here. So // transfers the default vendor code from item master screen to PO screen. Whatever makes sense to you, okay? The reason why I like to do that is because it helps tell a story, and I don't always know what these fields mean, so I need to have that description to remind me what I'm doing, okay? We're also going to transfer the item code from the item master data stream to the first row of the PO screen. So we're going to do another transfer macro. So we'll do quick insert again. And this time, we're going to go back to our item master screen here. And we're going to right-click the item code field. And we're going to paste that here. And the target field is going to be right here on the first row, the item number field on the first row here. So I'm going to right-click. Okay. And we're just going to update that. What I also want to do is, this item, I actually want to set the quantity as well. So we can actually use another macro command, the set command, to set the quantity within the quantity column. So what I'm going to do is if I go to the PO screen and I right-click the quantity field here, copy the system information or the syntax, and I actually want it to be the first row, I can set the value, let's say, to a quantity of any number. I'll just say 8, right? And then what I want to do after that is, after I set that quantity, I want the cursor on the row to appear on the last row of my purchase order screen. So we're going to use another macro command called focus. Okay, and so again, focus, all it does is places the cursor into a specific field. Okay, in this case, I want the focus to be on the item code field right here of the last row. So I'm going to right-click here, copy the dynamic syntax, and I'm actually going to say dot last. So it appears on the last row. Okay. And update. So let's take a look from the very beginning and see how this looks. So let's close out our purchase order screen. Let's close out our item master screen. Okay. I'll just minimize that, and let's go to our atom bomb item here. And we're going to click on our button, and let's see what happens. Okay, so what we see here is it automatically puts in the vendor information. It automatically put in the item code and the quantity. Oh, but I see that the quantity wasn't changed from 1 to 8. So it looks like I have a little bit of an error here. Let's go back to our macro command, and let's see what happened. Oh, I see the problem. I have the bracket in the wrong area. It should be at the very end. Okay, so let's update that. And let's try that again. Okay, so let's click on purchase order again. And ta-da, just like that, we've automated a process for our purchaser. He or she clicks on the purchase order button. It brings in the default vendor from the item master screen up here, puts in the item number. It actually puts in the quantity of 8. And just like that, we've automated some business process, but let's keep building from here. So there's a lot of other cool macro features as well. So for example, we can highlight certain fields. We can automatically add this PO to the screen. Let's keep on building from here. So let's go back. We're not going to save that. We're just going to go back to our universal function screen here. And we're going to add a couple more macros. So for example, the back color. I want to create the back color to be yellow for one of the fields on the PO. So for example, let's choose our back color macro here. Quick insert. And let's pick a field, for example, that we want to make yellow. So let's do this field. Let's right click, copy system information. And paste. And we can type in any color we want. So for example, yellow. But you know what else? If you recall, when we created our purchase order, we also had the item master screen in the background still open. So one of the really neat features is we can have the item master screen close automatically. So we're going to use a macro called close parent. And I just happen to know that the argument for close parent or the menu ID is 3073 for the item master data screen. Okay, so I'm going to update that. And what else I want to do is I want to click on the add button automatically. So it actually adds the purchase order screen, adds the purchase order automatically as well. So there's a nice little button or macro called click. And we're going to add that as well. And if you're wondering how do I find out what the menu ID is or the dynamic syntax is for add, I just right-click the add button itself, and I can find out the dynamic syntax. Now, most of the time, 99% of the time, it's always 1 for the add button, and the cancel button itself will be number 2, just an FYI. So I'll copy that, and I'm going to paste that here. And let's see this in action again. So let's start again from the very top with our item master data. Now pay attention to the item master data screen. Remember we put that close parent macro in there, so it should automatically close the item master data screen. So I'm going to click on the purchase order button. It created my purchase order and it automatically closed the item master data screen because I don't need it. I don't need to see it anymore. Okay, so I hope you're kind of getting an idea of how powerful the B1UP macro feature is. You can really do a lot of great things by automating your processes with B1UP macros. So let's even get more creative. A lot of people ask me, how do I create a prompt, a system prompt, or a pop-up message? Well, you can do that very easily with the B1UP macro feature called prompt. So let's go here and let's insert a new macro command called prompt. Okay, so what we want to do is ask a question. So here's the scenario. We want a pop-up message that asks our purchaser if they want to create an activity, right? Because we want to record every time this purchaser buys the atom bomb, we want to record that activity. We want to track that activity. So what we're going to do is we're going to prompt them with a question. And it's going to ask for another universal function to call. We're going to leave it like this for now, UF1, and it's going to send back an error to us. I want to do that on purpose just so that you can see this. Okay, so let's get this prompt working here. So we'll start over from our item master. Pull up our atom bomb item. Okay, we've got a purchase order, and now we've got a pop-up message. Do you want to create an activity? If you click on no, nothing's going to happen. If you click on yes, it should pull up an activity screen, but we haven't defined that universal function to call the activity screen yet, right? So when we click on yes, nothing's going to happen. We're going to get an error, right? It says universal function code UF1 was either not found or had an unknown function. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new universal function to call. So we're going to say add, and we're going to call this opens the activity stream. Or I should say creates an activity. That's a better description. And again, we're going to select macro, and we're going to use our activate macro command here. We're going to do a quick insert, and we're going to activate the activity screen. So how do I find out what the activity screen number is? I'm just going to go here to Business Partners to Activity, and at the bottom left corner of my screen, the menu ID says 2563. So I'm just going to quickly type that in. And add. So pay attention to this code, UF024. I'm going to copy that actually. I'm going to add that. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to replace this with UF-024. So it's going to call that other universal function configuration. Okay? So let's see how this all plays out. Go back to our inventory. Go back to our atom bomb, click on purchase order. Do you want to create an activity? I say yes. And ta-da, just like that, I've got the activity screen open. But remember what I said about our purchaser? Our purchaser is really lazy, and he doesn't want to put in any of this information himself. He wants the system to do it all for him. For example, the activity, he wants that to be a task. He wants to set the type to purchasing. He wants the subject set to create PO. He wants the BP code automatically transferred over from the purchase order screen. We want to automate as much of this as possible. In the remarks field, maybe we want to put in the purchase order number in here, the link document. We want to link the actual purchase order back to this activity. And maybe we'll even link back or transfer back the activity number to the related activity number field here on the purchase order. Again, we want to automate as much as possible for our purchaser. So let's make his life easier. Let's keep on building our new macro here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to set some information. So let's go back here to set. Okay, and again, we want to set the activity to task, so I'm just going to right-click here, copy system information, and I know that the value for task is actually the letter T, so I'm just going to put T there. Okay, I also want to set this field to purchasing, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to right-click here. I'm just going to zip right through this. And I just happen to know that purchasing is number 4. And I want to set the subject to create PO. So again, I'm going to right-click system information here. And I believe that's 7. In case you're wondering how I figure out if it's a 4 or if it's a 7, what I do is I hover my mouse over here, and I can see on the bottom left that create PO is number 7. For example, purchasing, that's number 4. And that's how I arrive at those values there. Okay. I also want to transfer back the business partner code from the purchase order back to the activity screen. So I'm going to copy that. Use my transfer macro. And the target, I want to put that in here. Great, and also what I want to do is I want to transfer the PO number, this field here, onto my activity. Maybe I'll put it here in the remarks field. So what I'll do is I'll transfer the document number to this field here, the remarks field. Okay. Okay, and I think I'm also going to, I think we talked about setting over here. We want to set the document type to purchase order, right? So what we'll do is use our set macro command. Oops. And we're going to set this field to 22. Okay, and we're going to transfer back the PO number, which is 66, into this field, into the document number. Okay, so we'll go to transfer. Okay, source and target is going to be this field. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look and let's see how this works. Oh, actually, one more thing. I want to transfer back one more thing. There's a nice little feature called transfer back. And what I want to do is I want to transfer back the activity number back to the PO field, to the PO stream. So let's use transfer back again. So the activity number, I want to transfer the activity number back to this field here so that we can cross-reference the activity against the PO and vice versa. Okay, looks good. Let's play it out. Let's see how this all works. So let's cancel this PO here. Let's go back to our original item master, or atom bomb. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we automatically created a purchase order. We get a prompt. It says, do you want to create an activity? You say yes. And ta-da, just like that, we created an activity. We've defaulted some of the information here. So the activity is task, type is purchasing, the subject is create PO. We transferred back the vendor code from the PO to the activity screen here. We also put the PO number into the remarks field. And if we take a look over here at the linked document, we can see that it's linked to document PO number 67. So I can drill right in there, and ta-da, just like that, I can cross-reference the two. Okay, and just like that, we've really made our purchaser's life a lot easier by automating a business process for him. Okay, so every time he sells the atom bomb, he automatically creates an activity that we can track. Okay, so I hope you had some fun getting creative and creating some macros and automating some business processes here. It's really just an overall a great tool to have. Again, you don't have to be a developer to do any of these things. And I'd like to open up the floor to any questions. Okay. Jaylene, are you able to unmute everybody?
Yeah, we certainly can.
Perfect.
Like the
So
original specs came in the file.
Do you have any questions?
Or not in the method.
we're getting some feedback here, Jerwin. So I'll just ask if you do have questions that you type them into the questions panel, and I can put them out there to Jerwin. While we're giving everyone a minute to do that, just a note that, as always, if you have questions after the session, my email address is in the chat window. You can send it to me or directly to Jerwin. My email is also in the follow-up email address or email that you'll receive tomorrow. And we'll also provide you a link to the recording of the session. I know there's a lot of information here, and you may want to go back and kind of rewatch sections of this to walk you through it as you're creating the macros on your own. So Jerwin, Peter says he likes it when you say ta-da. Can you do it again?
Ta-da! Thank you, Peter. Always great comments from Peter, our team lead here in Toronto. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up my contact information on the screen here. Please reach out to me if you've got any questions or if you've got any ideas on some future webinars you'd like to see. Please send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I promise to come back with more B1UP tips and tricks. There's lots of things we haven't even scratched the surface with what B1UP can do for you. So please reach out to me, and if you've also like to get some pricing on the B1UP add-on, I'd be more than happy to send out a quote to you as well. Okay.